Hello, dear DSC candidates. Welcome back to my Grammar for Success channel. I am Koresh Babu, a retired lecturer in English from Hyderabad. In today's video, I am going to teach you about the kinds of listening. This is one of the most important methodology aspects. Therefore, I request all of you to pay a very good attention to this video without skipping it in the middle. Thank you so much. And now let's get into the video. Kinds of listening, right? This is one of the very important aspects of methodology, and generally the questions are being posed on this particular topic, and therefore I have chosen to teach you about the kinds of listening. Okay, and here some important points are given so that you can keep them as a record. What is that? Understanding and practicing different types of listening can improve communication skills. You know very well, if you can understand the different types of listening, your communication skills will improve considerably, and they also foster better relationships both personally and professionally. So they also help you foster or improve better relationships both personally and professionally. So therefore you must pay a very good attention to the different kinds of listening. Okay, and one more important point about the kinds of listening is listening can be categorized into several types. That means there are several kinds of listening are there, and each serving different purposes, and it requires its own skills. Each type of listening will have its own purpose, and also it will require some different skills. Okay, first of all, let us learn about the active listening, or you can also call it the focused listening. Active listening or focused listening. Okay, what is this active listening? The name itself tells you that the listening is very active. The listening is focused. So that means this type of listening involves fully concentrating. So this involves what? Fully concentrating. Okay, that means you have to concentrate while listening to the spoken words of somebody. So while fully concentrating and understanding, not only simply concentrating on the spoken words, but understanding and responding and remembering what is being said. Okay, whenever somebody talks to you, whenever somebody says something, you must listen to it with full concentration. How? Understanding, responding, and remembering what he tells you. Okay, that's very important. That's called active listening or focused listening. And here you pay attention. This kind of listening is aimed at giving feedback, showing that you are engaged in the conversation. So this kind of listening is aimed at giving feedback, because generally this takes place in the classrooms, in the important meetings and all that, in the debates also. So you listen to that speaker very attentively. Okay, with full concentration you listen to that person. That means only if you are engaged in that conversation with full concentration, you can give a feedback about what is said. Okay, that is there, right? And this is a very important kind of listening. And now we move on to other kinds of listening. Second one, passive listening is there. Passive means dull listening or inactive listening. So passive listening is opposed to the active listening. So passive listening or casual listening. Casual listening is listening to something normally or generally, casually, something like that. And passive listening is nothing but listening to something casually. Very simple. The definition is also given in a simple way. So listening to something casually or passively is called passive listening or casual listening, and that too without active engagement or response. So any active engagement is not there, active involvement is not there, and without any active response also in that. So that's why such a kind of listening is called passive listening or casual listening. Okay, and you go to the next point about this. This kind of listening involves only receiving information without providing feedback or interacting with the speaker. So you only listen to that just normally or passively, because you are not expected to give any feedback about the information that you have listened to or that you have heard. Okay, and the third one is there, critical listening is there. What is this critical listening? Listening to the content of what is being heard for evaluation and analysis rather than just passively absorbing it. That is called critical listening. You are just listening to the content of what is said. That's very important. The content of what is said for what? For evaluation or for analysis. So you have to evaluate that information. You have to analyze that information. So for evaluation, for analysis of the information, if you can listen to that information, just rather than just passively absorbing it, simply taking all the information into your mind. Okay, what are you doing? You are using your discretion, you are using your brains, and you are listening to it carefully for evaluation and analysis. That is called critical listening. And here you pay attention, this type of listening is active. Okay, critical listening is very important, it's very active. It requires the listener engage with the material, question its validity, assess its relevance and credibility. So here the listener, what does he do? He will engage with the material. Whatever may be the information, whatever may be the material, the listener will engage with that material, so that he will question the validity of that, he will assess the relevance and credibility of that matter. So questioning the validity and assessing the relevance and credibility of that material, he will be listening to that matter, he will be engaging with that matter. That's why the listener is supposed to be very active in this critical listening, and it is essential in academic settings, professional environments and daily life. So this kind of listening is required not only in the academic institutions, professional environments, but also in our everyday life, because you must listen to that something, evaluating and analyzing. Okay, rather simply or passively absorbing it, just without taking all the matter into your mind. You must listen to that, analyzing that and evaluating that. So in that way, if you can listen to that some matter, that is called critical listening. Critical listening involves listening to something, evaluating and analyzing. So evaluating and analyzing. Okay, so that kind of listening is called critical listening, very important. Now let's move on to other kinds of listening. Fourth one, empathetic listening. What is this empathetic listening? Listening to somebody to understand and share the feelings of the speaker. Listening to somebody to understand and share his feelings. To understand his feelings, one point. To share his feelings, because people will have so many things to share with others. So if you are there to listen to that person, to share his joys and sorrows, what happens? He feels very happy. So that kind of for sharing his joys and sorrows, or for sharing his emotions, if at all you can listen to somebody, that kind of listening is called empathetic listening. Okay, and that is there. And you go to the next point about this. This type of listening is crucial. Crucial means very important. For what? For providing emotional support to that speaker and also building very good relationship with others. So when you listen to some person who has come to you to share his problems with you, to share his joys with you, to share his sorrows with you, then it will provide him with emotional support, and the relationship between you and that person will develop a lot. It will help you build a good relationship with that person. Through this empathetic listening, you can provide emotional support to your friends, relatives and all others. Okay. And you can also build very good relationship with all of them. So for that purpose, this empathetic listening is very crucial and all that. Now let's move on to the next one. Selective listening is there. The name itself tells you that the listening is selective. Okay, you don't want to listen everything. Okay, all rubbish. You want to be selective. You want to listen only to certain things, not all rubbish. That is the point. Selective listening, and listening while focusing on specific parts of the conversation and ignoring others. When somebody is talking to you, you listen to the important points which he is telling you, but not the unimportant things that he is telling you. Okay, you listen to, when you are listening to somebody, he will be telling you so many things, and you listen to only important points which he tells you, but not the unimportant, all unnecessary things which he tells you. So that is called selective listening. In the class, what happens, the teacher will teach you important things about the lesson. In the middle what happens, the teacher will also crack some jokes. So you may not pay attention to all unnecessary things, and the teacher might shout on the children, and he will talk to other persons and all that. So all such unnecessary, unimportant things you don't pay any attention to. You pay attention only to what the important matter that you require, that you want. So this kind of listening is called selective listening. And here one more point about this is, this can be useful when filtering out irrelevant information. So this is very useful for us because we can filter out irrelevant information, and we can take what only the relevant information. So for that purpose this is very useful. And sometimes what happens, it can lead to misunderstandings if important details are missed. So in the name of filtering out irrelevant information, you might certain times lose important information also. So that's why you must be very careful while filtering out important information from unimportant information. Okay, that is there. So this kind of listening is called selective listening. Okay, now let's move on to the next kind of listening. Reflective listening is there. Reflective listening means thinking over the matter that is spoken to you. So that's called reflective listening. Through mirroring back, that means through pondering over the things or words spoken by somebody. So through mirroring back means through reflecting, or through pondering, or through thinking over or meditating, listening to what has been said earlier by the speaker. So the speaker is there. So the speaker has said something sometime back. So what are you doing now? You are just bringing all that matter back into your mind. That means you are mirroring back. You are pondering over the words or the matter that was spoken to you by some speaker earlier, sometime back. So you are just remembering those words or remembering that matter spoken by somebody. That's the meaning. Why are you doing that? Means in order to show understanding and clarify the message. So just you remember that matter spoken to you, and you try to understand what it is all about, and you want to get some clarification about that matter, about that message. So that kind of listening is called reflective listening. Okay, and this kind of listening helps ensure both parties are on the same page. So that means on the same page means both the listener and the speaker are on the same platform. That means are moving on with the same mind and all that. Okay, because there will be no confusion. You are getting clarification about the message. So when you get the clarification, the speaker, the listener, both will be on the same page. That is on the same platform with the same mind, they move forward. So that is there. And you go to the next one, informational listening. This is also a very important kind of listening. Listening to something with a goal of learning. With a goal of learning. Generally this takes place in the classrooms, colleges, educational institutions and all that. Retaining information. After listening to some important information for learning, will you throw it out? No, you retain it in your mind. So you are listening to somebody for learning and retaining information. These two things are there. In the classroom what happens? You listen to the teacher. Why? You are listening to the teacher for learning something. And after learning that something, what do? You retain it. You retain that information, right? That is called informational listening. And you go to the next one. This type of listening is common in educational institutions or when acquiring new skills. Whenever you happen to learn new technologies or new techniques, new things, then there also it is very much required, and here in the educational institutions also it is very much required. So that's why informational listening is very important. Okay, this is a beautiful kind of listening. And now let's move on to other kinds of listening. Appreciative listening. See, the name itself tells you that you are listening to something for appreciation. Right. Listening for enjoyment or pleasure, that's called appreciation. Right. Such as listening to music, poetry, a compelling speech. Compelling means very powerful speech, okay, is called appreciative listening. This kind of such things require appreciative listening. You don't listen to that song or that speech or some poetry or some dialogues or some comedy carelessly. You listen to all of them very attentively, appreciating, praising, admiring, like that. So that's there. Another point about this is this type of listening is more relaxed and personal, because you are listening to something for enjoyment, for pleasure. So you are listening to something for appreciation, and that's why this kind of listening is relaxed and moreover it is personal. So personal means listening to something for enjoyment is personal, because some people listen to Tamil songs, some people listen to Hindi song, some people listen to Carnatic music, some people, different people will have different tastes. So that's why it is exclusively personal. Appreciative listening is exclusively personal. Right. This is okay. Now we move on to the ninth one, relationship listening. Relationship listening is also there. What is this relationship listening? Listening to others. To is missing here. After the verb listen, we must always use the preposition to. That's why listening others is bad. Listening to others in order to build or maintain relationships is called relationship listening is there. So this kind of listening is very important in our everyday life, because some your next door neighbor will come to you to share his problems with you, or to tell about his problems he is facing. So you must pay a very good attention to his problems. Otherwise what happens, he starts hating you, he starts detaching you. Okay, it's like that. And that's why if you can listen to his problems, then what happens? It will build or maintain very good relationship. If you can listen to your friend who has come to you to tell you about his problems, then what happens? The relationship between you and your friend will be built very strongly, and it will be maintained strongly. Okay, and that is called relationship listening. And you go to the next point. This type of listening involves understanding the context and emotions behind the words. So while that person tells you something, you are listening to, means you must understand the context and emotions behind. Context is important. When that person is telling you about his problems, you must try to understand the context of the situation, the emotions he is undergoing and all that. Often used in personal and professional interactions. So this can be found only in personal and professional interactions. Okay, right. You move on to the next one. 10th one, comprehensive listening is there. This is also a very important kind of listening. This kind of listening is also known as informational listening. Informational listening or comprehensive listening, both are almost the same, right? And this is a type of listening which involves understanding and processing the meaning of the words and information being conveyed. So when you listen to something, what happens? You understand and process the meaning of the words and information. That means this comprehensive listening involves understanding and processing the meaning of the words and information being conveyed. Not simply listening to that person, but trying to understand the meaning of the words or information, or processing that information or analyzing the information. And it requires not only hearing the words, but also interpreting the message. So simply it requires not just hearing the words spoken by somebody, but you have to interpret the message and make sense of it. So you have to interpret means you have to understand that message and you have to make sense of that. That means you must take the very good sense of that. So all such things will take place in this comprehensive listening. And one more important point about this is this kind of listening usually takes place in a classroom setting. In a classroom this happens. You don't simply listen to the teacher's words, okay, and you just, what do? You try to understand whatever the teacher is teaching you, and you also start processing the information in your mind. So this comprehensive. During a meeting also, the collector's meeting is there, or some higher officials meeting is there. In that meeting, what happens, so you have to listen to the matter that is being spoken. And you must, what do? You must understand that, you must process that also. And while listening to instructions from a supervisor or mentor. So some supervisor is there, some mentor is there, he is giving you some instructions. How do you listen to them? You must listen to them carefully, and you must understand them. You must process the meaning of the words and information. You must understand the meaning of those words and information. That is very important. That means understanding the meaning and information of the words. If you can listen to anybody, that is called comprehensive listening. Generally, this kind of comprehensive listening will take place in a classroom or in a meeting, or while taking some instructions. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. 11th one, discriminative listening is there. Discriminate. So you have, that name itself tells you that you should discriminate. Discriminate means, you show the difference or distinction between what is good and what is bad. So that's called discriminative listening. While searching for something on internet, what do? You show your discrimination. Good things will come across you, bad things will also come across you. So you don't choose to watch the bad things, but you try to watch only the good things. And in the movies also, there are good things and bad things. So you don't pay attention to bad things, but you pay only attention to good things. That is called discriminative nature. Discrimination means that is there. So here in listening also, there must be some discrimination. So discriminative listening is there. What is this? This kind of listening is the most basic form of listening, since it focuses on distinguishing between different sounds and tones rather than understand the meaning of the words. Simply, instead of understanding the meaning of the words, you must try to understand the tone or the sound of the person who is speaking with you. Suppose somebody has come to you and he is talking to you in a low voice and all that. And from his words you understand that he is in a sad mood. From listening to the words of the person, you understand in which mood or in which situation the other person is. So that means, you just don't understand the words spoken by that person, but you also understand the mood of the person, the situation of the person. That's very important. So that kind of listening is called discriminative listening. Okay, it involves recognizing subtle differences in the speaker's voice. When the speaker is speaking with some kind of low voice, then he is in sorrowful mood, something like that. And pitch, if he is speaking in high volume or high pitch, means he is in angry mood or something like that. Like tone, even pauses, which can convey important information about the speaker's emotions and intent. About the speaker's emotions, about the speaker's intentions. So, his voice, the pitch, tone, and his pauses, all these things of the speaker will convey so many things. So, when the speaker speaks in a low voice or in high voice, that will convey something. So, simply not understanding the meaning of the words, but also try to understand the mood behind those words, the situation that is behind the words spoken. So that is very important, and that is called discriminative listening. With this, the kinds of listening have come to an end. Now let us move on to do some exercise on these 11 kinds of listening. Okay, very quickly let us do that. Multiple choice questions based on different types of listening. Okay. What type of listening involves fully concentrating, understanding, responding, and remembering what is being said? Passive listening, critical listening, active listening, appreciative listening. Which type of listening is characterized by receiving information without providing feedback or interacting with the speaker? Empathetic listening, passive listening, reflective listening, informational listening. Okay. Evaluating and analyzing what you hear to assess the validity and relevance is known as active listening, appreciative listening, critical listening, empathetic listening. Understanding and sharing the feelings of the speaker is an aspect of empathetic listening, critical listening, passive listening, informational listening. Which type of listening involves focusing on specific parts of the conversation and ignoring others? Reflective listening, selective listening, active listening, appreciative listening. Mirroring back what the speaker has said to ensure clarity and understanding is called active listening, critical listening, reflective listening, informational listening. Listening with the goal of learning and retaining information is known as appreciative listening, informational listening, passive listening, empathetic listening. Listening for enjoyment or pleasure, such as to music or poetry, is termed appreciative listening, critical listening, reflective listening, active listening. Listening to build or maintain relationships by understanding the context and emotions behind the words is called informational listening, selective listening, relationship listening, passive listening. Which type of listening involves giving feedback and showing that you are engaged in the conversation? Empathetic listening, passive listening, active listening, selective listening. Which type of listening involves understanding and retaining the information provided by the speaker? Discriminative listening, informational listening, empathetic listening, critical listening. Listening to evaluate a speaker's message, assess arguments, and make judgments is known as informational listening, empathetic listening, discriminative listening, critical listening. What type of listening focuses on the feelings and emotions of the speaker? Discriminative listening, empathetic listening, comprehensive listening, informational listening. Which type of listening is primarily used to distinguish between different sounds or stimuli? Informational listening, critical listening, discriminative listening, empathetic listening. Which type of listening is typically used during lectures or presentations to understand and remember key points? Discriminative listening, empathetic listening, informational listening, comprehensive listening. Listening to understand the underlying meaning or context behind the words is called critical listening, discriminative listening, empathetic listening, comprehensive listening. What type of listening involves responding thoughtfully and supportively to a speaker's needs? Empathetic listening, informational listening, critical listening, discriminative listening. Listening to identify differences in sound, such as a change in tone or pitch, is an example of informational listening, discriminative listening, empathetic listening, critical listening. What type of listening is used when analyzing a debate or a persuasive speech to determine the validity of arguments? Informational listening, empathetic listening, discriminative listening, critical listening. Last one here is, which type of listening is primarily concerned with the literal content of the message rather than the emotional context? Empathetic listening, comprehensive listening, informational listening, critical listening. Okay, with this small exercise comes to an end. Please try to answer all the questions. If you cannot answer the questions correctly, now you go to the answers. Answers are also given for you. Please check your answers with these answers. Answers for the questions from 1 to 10. Answers for the questions from 11 to 20. So with this small video comes to an end, and from now onwards I'm going to make all videos on methodology. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. Hello dear DSC candidates, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any problem in understanding any one of the points I have dealt with in this video, please make a mention of it in the comment section. Okay, with another video I shall be back to you. Until then, bye, see you all of you.